Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. On the stage are the first two players for our first map. To my right is a gentleman that has been joining us for the fourth time in WCS Premier League. He is Axiom #1. He is Hart. And to my left, overcoming the obstacle of visas, he's here to make his comeback, his return. He is the Surgeon Zerg, viOLet. Congratulations on making it to the round of 8. Hart, any words for your opponent before we begin?
viOLet is my favorite player and my friend. I want to make a good game. Thank you.
Thank you, Hart. That came from the heart. viOLet, any words?
Yeah, it's true. We are good friends, and we are a really good friendship. But when the match is up, I face with him. We are both smiling, because we can beat them each other and not really hard than other players. So I think this match will be very fun.
It will be a fun match in this best of 5. Winner continues to the semifinals. Loser goes home. Gentlemen, best of luck to you. Back to the desk.
Thank you very much, Josh. And we are almost getting ready for our first series of the day. Of course, no more best of 3s. It's going to be best of 5s from this point on. And the only thing that's more fun than a best of 5 is, actually, no, maybe a best of 7. But we have that in the finals. You got to save the best for last, right?
Yeah, that's right. And it means lots of games, lots of Terran games, as this Terran versus Zerg will surely be a great series. I love to see how viOLet's style clashes up against the way that Hart's going to play, because Hart has played very straight up, but we've seen viOLet play 2 completely different styles that, when you look at the map vetoes, can really influence the veto decisions. It was almost like he was a different player going up against someone like Tasia compared to Major.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. His playstyle definitely varies a lot, and I think it has a lot to do with what kind of player he plays against. Hart comes out of the box vetoing Altazim Stronghold, no surprise there. And what are we expecting viOLet to veto, Nate?
Way Station, I'm thinking. That's a very popular veto. It's important to keep in mind, though, that's, okay, it will be Waystation, but since it is a best of 5, there's not really too much vetoing to be done. So I think the map order is where things get a little bit more interesting. If you can get a good first few maps for your styles.
Frost, Nate.
Frost?
I feel it. I feel it in my water. It's Frost.
I think Overgrowth. Overgrowth.
Oh, we're both wrong.
Correct. Okay, well, King Sejong Station is a great map to start on, guys. It's one of those maps that actually I think I like viOLet's styles on, because it gives him a lot of flexibility. We've seen him do some crazy stuff on this map, but looking forward, Frost is a second map. Okay, makes a lot of sense. Not surprising there. And actually, I guess
we'll just go down. Habitation next, Overgrowth, merry-go-round. Just keep it simple.
Just straight down the line on that list.
Keep it simple for the graphics crew.
It wouldn't be bad. Oh, look at that. These guys know.
I actually think it's going to be Overgrowth next. And of course, I mean, the 4th and 5th map are only played if necessary. As if it's a 3-0, then our best of 5 will be done. But I'm really excited for this one. Hart has showed us phenomenal TVZ. viOLet keeps surprising us as well, and it's kind of almost unfair to say that he keeps surprising us, but every single time when I think I know how good viOLet is, then he does something that I don't really expect him to do. He did it back then in Wings of Liberty already with IPL 5, which was one of the most stacked tournaments of all time, and I knew viOLet was good, but I was like, there's no way that he's going to be top 3 in this tournament. He made it all the way to the final, came so close to winning it. I think he lost to Linok back then.
Yeah.
Because Linok used to win like every single
Linok was in the octopus those days, man. No one could stop that guy.
So, but like still, if you ask me on paper right now, if you would have asked me maybe 2 months ago, I would have probably gone with viOLet, even though viOLet was also a little shaky. For instance, viOLet did not even qualify for WCS America Season 1. He lost in Challenger against the Chinese Protoss player Top. It was a huge upset, but then back then we also thought, well, viOLet, he's been out of the scene for a while. How long will it take before he gets his rhythm back? And even if he gets his rhythm back, how good will it be? Will he be good compared to North Americans or good compared to the best players out there? And then last week at MLG Anaheim, viOLet makes it out of group play, goes like 5-2 in his group, makes it to the winner bracket final, even comes so close to defeating Trap in the loser bracket as well, but still finishing top 3 at a stacked tournament like MLG Anaheim shows us that viOLet will always be a force to be reckoned with.
Indeed, and he's played so well. It's been really exciting to see his games. Hart, we know that he's good. He played very well in his round of 32 groups. I think that was where we were most impressed by him. And then He dug himself out of the depths in a very crazy series against Shigua in the round of 16, and he's been very active in WCS, but he wants to get a bit further than the round of 8 this season. He's been on fire a bit, at least as far as his WCS performance goes. I didn't get a chance to see any of his games at any other recent tournaments, though I know Axiom has been preparing quite heavily for the Acer Team Story Cup playoffs, which are coming up in I think even just a few weeks' time. So these guys are practicing a lot. They're not trying to have too many of their games shown. And I'm really interested to see what he brings to the table against this guy. viOLet, of course, as you mentioned, he's been playing very well recently. He's been staying in America. He's been practicing in Atlanta with Pult, and he's been playing in a lot of these different North American tournaments, the Battlegrounds America, MLG Anaheim, as you'd mentioned. And this is just another step forward for him. It's been a good year so far for viOLet, and he's looking to just take it higher and higher as he makes his first round of 8 appearance.
Yep. On paper, you would always say, you know, viOLet's best matchup is probably ZVT for multiple reasons. Zerg is pretty good on the current map pool against Terran. I think that's safe to say. And B, if you're living with one of the best Terran players in the world, like Paul, then it's obvious that you're going to practice a lot with him. You're going to talk especially about that matchup very often. So you would say theoretically this has to be his best matchup. And I think it's probably the case as well. But it's also important that, like, Paul, as good as he is only one player. And if you only practice ZVT against Paul, then on a certain moment you're practicing Zerg versus Paul, then you're not really practicing Zerg versus Terran anymore. So viOLet has to be aware of this, that Hart is obviously going to do quite a few things different than Paul. And even in the last few weeks, we saw Paul switch up his playstyle so often against Zerg that, you know, how much does it really mean? Obviously, the practice is awesome, the mechanics, the map awareness, stuff like that. I'm pretty sure that viOLet has all of that on lockdown, but he can't play too blindly. He's really going to have to react well to what Hart is going to do. And Hart, well, Nate, I look forward to watching his control in this series because he has blown me away over the last few weeks.
The first thing that comes to mind when you mention control and Hart, the Baneling snipes in that series, trying to get aggressive versus this guy, I don't know if you're going to be able to kill him if it comes down to a small micro battle, that's for sure. And as we load into the first map, the coolest part about Hart's play is that since he used to be such an aggressively known player, we still know he's a player that can 2-racks. Even some fast aggressive Reaper play wouldn't surprise me. But it's having that threat that he's so good in the macro game, especially recently, that makes you say, Hart is not a predictable player at all. How do you prepare for someone that doesn't really have an issue playing the standard game, but can also cheese you pretty easily?
I think this is going to be just a slugfest, one way or the other. I really don't see either player taking this series 3-0, perhaps not even a 3-1. I think it's going to be very close. And like you said, viOLet, he's unpredictable. He can play both styles. He can play Mutalisk Bane, but his Roach Hydra play looks intimidating. And even against the best Terran players in the world, he has shown us that he's capable of making it work. And then we have, you know, this guy, Nate. Why don't you just go ahead and give him the introduction that he deserves?
All right, well, we are here on King Sejong Station. As you mentioned, our first player, the Red Terran from Team Axiom. It is Hart. Axiom boys representing in the top 8. His opponent in the Southeast. Been practicing a lot in Atlanta with the CSN agency. It is our blue Zerg. It is viOLet. These guys have come a long way to get here. We've seen a lot of their Terran versus Zerg from both players. The first series that we were initially really impressed by from Hart, I'd say, was that series against Sejong that he played in around a 32 group. And he's just been stepping it up ever since. I'm really excited to see what he brings to the table in this series.
Yeah, that series against Sejong was fantastic, but even the series that he lost, because he did drop one series in the round of 32 against Hyun, but even in that series, Nate, he played so incredibly well, and there was an all-in, which he should have died to like 3 times already, but he just kept hanging in there, kept sniping Banelings, kept going for the hot pickups, putting units on hold position. Just like his crisis management during that all-in was some of the best that I've ever seen, and that's really not like trying to build up the hype, best I've ever seen. I was blown away. I mean, you were sitting next to me, I was losing my mind. I really thought it was so beautiful, and despite him eventually still dying to it, I really thought he was showing us phenomenal things, and that made me so excited to watch Hart in the round of 16, and boy, did he deliver in the round of 16.
Yeah, I think any Terran player can appreciate how difficult it is to pull off some of the micro maneuvers that Hart made. His sniping of Banelings in particular, man, that's one of those things. You're like, oh, okay, I'm running from the Zerg. Let's just try to click on one Baneling behind, and then you miss, and everything dies to a couple explosions. it's pretty brutal, and you consider that Hart seems to have no trouble pulling off very difficult maneuvers like this. It's one of the things that makes him a very scary player and very difficult to kill early on. viOLet, even in this series, is showing a little bit of respect with that early drone scout that he did, only to check for any potential proxy barracks, because he knows, as good as Hart may be in the macro game, he could very easily go for a 2-Rax or a proxy Reaper.
Yes, he is. We saw the extractor go down, like you mentioned. I'm a little bit surprised by that, especially because viOLet against Major definitely had more series, more success with his gasless openings than with his extractor openings. But we'll see where he takes this. I'm expecting very straight-up play in the first game, and I also really wonder how good is viOLet's creep spread going to be. Something that, despite his pretty damn good results in his matchup, is not something that I think he really excels at. He's good at it, like any other Zerg at this level, but it's never really been like, oh wow, this is going to be really tough for the Terran to move out. And I feel against someone who's as good in splitting as Hart is, it's going to be really important that viOLet is going to prioritize that a little more than he normally does in his EVTs.
Yeah, this is one of those players that you can't really rely on to make mistakes. You have to bring your A game 100%. And we've seen him open up with the speed a few times. He's not one of the players that always uses it aggressively. However, we saw some chances, some glimpses where he actually got a few opportunities in the round of 16, and I'm excited to see if he can bring anything more. Was it against Polt on Frost where he got a nice lead, and then it was just a great play by Polt that brought the game back?
Yeah, no, viOLet is definitely the type of Zerg that you can't just expect him to make speed and then he's only going to drone up. There will always be this moment where he pushes you away with his 4 to 6 speed links, but then actually fires up 16 to 18 behind it, runs them across the map, tries to surround your first 2 to 4 Hellions, and if he gets that, well, he's going to be able to deal a lot of economic damage in the face of the game. That is the last thing you want to worry about if you're a Terran player. You're just supposed to rally your SCVs, drop your mules, and of course, guys, keep a close eye on the mule count, as today's question of the day is, are we going to see over or under 300 mules? You push the bar to 300, Nate. You have a lot of faith in our Terran brothers, don't you?
Oh, I'm sure everyone that doesn't like Terran will say we'll hit 5,000 mules. Thanks for your tweet, Angel Avenger. Having fun cheering on Hart. Of course, we love reading your guys' feedback and hope you guys all stay connected throughout the series, because these are going to be some great games. So far, we have a Banshee opening from Hart, which isn't really that surprising. Hart's one of the players that's busted this out a few times, and I really like how you see such a wide variance in Terran build orders against Zerg lately. Everyone's doing different things or making subtle changes across the board. I think it was Major and Polt in the round of 16. Both of them would open Banshee, but without Cloak. So you can already see just tiny little differences. He wants to get a little bit more pressure on and abuse any potential lack of detection.
viOLet's going to sacrifice his Overlord in the main base. Of course, would love to see that starport with the add-on. Would have loved to see that tech lab spinning. Often when Zerg players do see that tech lab spinning, Terran players will cancel Cloak. But since it didn't get scouted, there's no need for Hart to do that just yet.
Yep, this is still a nice spot for both players. Neither of them have really committed to anything crazy. viOLet getting his third base up at a pretty reasonable time. It's not the fastest third that we see Zerg players take since he took the second gas in his natural expansion, but these Lings want to run in and get a secondary scout. Will not be allowed into the main base. However, viOLet, as you mentioned, has not seen the starport. He has not seen the third command center, and he hasn't seen the gases in the main base. So this could be a 3 command center opening. This could be, a Hellbat opening. This could be Banshee. There's so many different things. And now the Banshee arrives, and the spores are not done just yet, so a little bit of extra drone damage caused here by Hart.
Yep, but I do love that viOLet on a certain point realized that I've just not seen enough, and my opponent did try pretty hard to snipe my Overlord, because apparently he had something to hide. So he did throw down the spore crawlers. It was a little too late. Banshee did some work, but imagine if that spore wouldn't even have gone down yet. Then instead of losing 4 drones, he's going to lose 8 till maybe even 12. So it wasn't the worst there for viOLet. Could have ended up a lot worse.
Yeah, this is still a very nice, standard, solid place. Both players getting their upgrades together, +1/1. Melee upgrades especially. We know that viOLet is a player that's not shied away from those +1 attack roach timings, and he's going to get his lair, I'd say, at it's more of a conservative time. He won't have any really fast Mutalisks, so this Viking that Hart is building as a follow-up to his Banshee should be able to pick off at least a couple of Overlords. Shouldn't have too much trouble, and these 2 Banshees can look to delay creep, maybe even kill a Queen if they can get a 1v1 fight. However, viOLet, he's got all the pieces in place he needs so far, but no Overseer with these Queens. Might need to use a transfuse.
His lair is actually super freaking late. I just see that right now. Only his lair halfway done. This is 9 minutes into the game. He fired up his lair at the 9-minute mark. That's not something we see every single day.
No, it's you know, you wanted to get those up. You want to get the upgrades out fast and have that early Zergling speed. You have to compensate somewhere. This Zergling, we'll see that the third command center has landed for Hart. And there's not really too much you can do about this because Hart still has these Banshees out on the map. He'll see if anything leaves viOLet's base. And because of that, viOLet's kind of, you know, if you can't kill these Banshees, you have to stay conservative on the map. Oh, if he can kill them, that'd be nice. Oh, kills one of the Banshees. His Viking's going for an Overlord. Second Banshee. Ouch.
Little sloppy there by Hart. That was completely unnecessary.
I think he thought those Banshees were out of range. He just looked away for a second.
Yep. They did get some work done, but that was the only thing that he had on that side of the map in this phase in the game. He does still have all his Hellions at home. He's very definitely preparing for crazy viOLet Zergling run-bys in a phase in the game where you don't expect it, but would have been much nicer to keep those Banshees alive, even just for scouting purposes for a little while.
Yeah, the Spire is on the way, and as you mentioned, because this is on the later end of layers, the Mutalisks are not out in time to really stop this Viking from clearing a lot of vision. There's no more Overlords out past the creep line for viOLet, as this Viking gets up to 3 kills now, which is very nice for Hart because he's going to start getting his Medivacs out soon. And once these Medivacs come out, that's when the Terran drops begin. And, well, that's when this push-out begins. 11:30 leaving his base. This is the standard time a Terran player wants to push and get a little bit of damage done before those mutas are out.
From this point on, it's all going to come down to execution and engagement. Of course, Hart doesn't really want to fight before Combat Shield finishes up. A lot of Zerglings on the production tab. We currently have 26 Zerglings and 14 Banelings. In theory, that should be more than enough to deal with this, but Hart has proven us before that, you know, normal numbers do not really apply to him when he's feeling it.
And we have a little bit of Baneling run by trying to head up towards the third base of Hart. This bunker picks off all three Banelings, so nice defense so far. That bunker actually did a really nice job of holding this force back, so some of those Banelings that we were talking about weren't actually here defensively, just 9 sitting back.
viOLet is about to get supply blocked because he's about to lose 3 Overlords in the main base to that single Viking, and well, actually he leaves 2 of them on very low HP. At the same time, Hart is moving in the left bottom side, probably expecting a 4 hatchery to go up by now, but no 4th hatch in production just yet, so he knows he's going to have to be careful as well. No need for him to step too far on creep, but he's pushing it back and he's not losing any units, so I think so far so good for Hart.
Yeah, you know, you make a really good point. viOLet is playing this pretty conservatively with how slowly he's moved to take this 4th base. As you mentioned, Hart, when you make this push as a Terran, you look to kill creep and deny that 4th base, but not having anything to see there. Hart still in an okay position himself, can get everything else together. He's got a refinery. Oh, I guess that one of those Banelings stopped a refinery from being built at his 3rd.
I really like Hart's position though. Hart is up at 36 army supply. He has 61 SCVs against 71 drones. 4th base just now being morphed in on the right side of the map. There's almost no creep protecting it at all. He's going to start dropping soon. He's going to start looking for engagement with these Widow Mines and Hellbats. And knowing how good his control is, look at the supply, Nate. That really doesn't look that healthy for viOLet.
You know, usually as a Zerg player, you want to be up a little bit. He's relying on these Banelings to defend with the creep that's here. Now leaving these Marauders up front. Widowmine actually gets a solid detonation, and there's Hellbats ready to drop stuff back. This drop hits the 3rd base. There's no units here to defend. Hart, he's just not making too many mistakes right now. And these Hellbats up front, even though Banelings do extra damage, are going to take a while to kill. And the splits from Hart, he doesn't die to Banelings.
This is like Tasia reincarnated or something like that. Good job so far by Hart. viOLet trying to hang in there, but the reinforcements have arrived. So many Marines. 2-2 is even ready for Hart already. Well, it's not ready for viOLet yet. I don't think viOLet is not going to have enough unless he gets miracle connections with his Banelings, but look at this, Nate.
Splits
Gross.
from Hart. I wish I could do this. viOLet below 100 supply is being pushed to this 4th base. How are you going to saturate this with this army right outside your front door?
There's no army anymore.
Yeah, there is no army. And how many? Just 2 Banelings, 7 now in production tab. He does not have anything to stop this push from Hart. Hart's just said, yeah, okay, I heard make Marines, Medivacs, some Marauders, and some Mines, and just attack. And he's done it perfectly so far. He hasn't needed to do anything really tricky this game. I'm really impressed.
He doesn't even have to push the issue after this either. As long as he kills his 4th hatch, of course he can try to pick up as many Banelings as he possibly wants to. He has Marauders in the mix, he has Widow Mines in good positions, getting 6 shots off over there. viOLet losing the majority of his army before the fight truly starts, and with just, well, he has 14 Banelings left. That might be enough. Okay, those are some good connections.
Finally, a few solid detonations in favor of viOLet, but Hart still has the 3 base versus 3 base setup, which is where you want to be as a Terran. Hart's still up in supply. His +3 upgrades are coming in, and especially important, none of these Widow Mines have been killed, so Hart he can still fall back.
That is important.
He's got his 4th command center almost done.
That is definitely very important. What is also important is that there is still no infestation pit, no hive. You know, eventually this is going to be the good old scenario where look at these Widow Mines doing some work. Violet once more losing the majority of his army, but there's no stage pit, there's no sign of hive, which means no sign for 3-3 upgrades. And if you're on even basis as a Zerg and you're fighting with 2-2 against a 3-3 Terran, that also, by the way, has his 4th command center ready already, or pretty much ready, and he can float it into position. There's just, I don't see any possible scenario where Violet is suddenly going to be able to move out, be able to counterattack or whatsoever. The moment he sends some of his army, which is already very small, across the map, Hard is going to stim in his natural and just kill him.
Yeah, this is one of those few times where the Zerg player, even, you don't want to fight off creep normally, but even on creep, Violet has had a really hard time getting good engagement. He's going to take both bases on the left and right side, and I imagine this is him saying, well, hopefully he only kills one of them before I can start mining on the other, as he's looking in pretty much every position. Now that Hard's maxed out, it's like, yeah, you don't want to push on creep, but he still has these medevacs floating around, and denying this base would be quite nice because his main army is moving towards the right side, and Violet, I'm really afraid for what exactly, like, what his options are. I'm not even sure what he can do in this position. Hearts just has so much of a lead. It is the most amazing Baneling detonations we've ever seen.
I don't think there are many options left. Violet's going to try to roll in with most of his Banelings. Of course, Banelings are a good comeback unit, and they're getting a couple of reasonable connections over there. Nothing was picking up a few of those Banelings, but there is just way too much terror knocking on the front door of Violet now, and Hard just continues what he's been doing in the round of 32 and the round of 16, and that is in particularly in this matchup, Nate.
Yeah, Banelings all taken out. There's still lots of Marines, Marauders, and the Thor here to help push away the Mutalisks. Violet's natural is under siege, and Hart continuing to push in, has so many forces behind this. Even if the Banelings kill the front line, there's an endless stream of units moving across the map. I don't see any way that Violet stops this. He's lost his Baneling nest. And yeah, he can't kill this army. Hart, he looks like he should be able to take this first game.
Yeah, this one is all over, but the crying, as Mr. Bitter would have said in the old days, as these drones will all fall, the hatcheries are going to fall. Did the Mutalisk of Violet make it past the halfway mark in this game one time, Nate? I don't think they made it across the map.
Yeah, there was almost no harass at all that Violet was able to do past that initial Baneling run by, and even that didn't get him much. These forces from Violet trying to move up from the naturals. Actually, the Baneling nest he was rebuilding got killed. He's rebuilding it again. And with no Banelings, you don't beat 3-3 Marines, Roddy.
Never give up, never surrender is the spirit of Violet right now, but after losing everything pretty much in his main base, he knows that the writing is on the wall for this one. It's 134 army supply against 53. Some players prefer to stay in the game a little longer so they can think about it. They feel that they have a closer connection, still being in the game, instead of just tapping out immediately and kind of raging. As long as you're still playing, as long as you see units move, you're kind of like, what should I have done better? Where did it all go wrong? I still think that layer was unusually late, but you didn't seem to think that. You thought it was on purpose?
Yeah, it's not the worst thing ever, but Hart does take the first game of this series, and Violet, man, that was a pretty rough game. And you mentioned the lair being late. There are ways, and there's a good couple of Zerg players that can get around things like this when you want to play the economic 3-base focus style, but he likes to open speed. It just really didn't seem to do much for him in that instance. Maybe if the fast third hatchery was a little bit faster, if he was able to drone that up more quickly, he could afford enough Zerglings to try to stop that attack. But Hart just didn't make any mistakes. And as we saw, the Viking cleared Overlords and Violet got supply block for a couple of seconds. It's a tough spot to be in, but man, it was just clean standard play.
I mean, it's safe to say that Hart didn't really make a whole lot of mistakes, but there was also nothing that really jumped out. There wasn't really something, I mean, other than the usual, in which he's very good, and that's just playing this matchup. But it's not like he opened up with a bunch of Hellions that killed 14 workers. Those Banshees, yeah, they did some work, but it's not like that was like, oh my god, that's so much damage. How do you recover from it? It was all kind of safe. It was all kind of standard for the longest time. And Violet just didn't really seem to have an answer to whatever Hart was throwing at him. That fort was incredibly late. You know, normally when Hart was looking to cancel it, it didn't even exist yet. You could say that first Baneling little run by for Violet definitely didn't get done what he was hoping for, as he only killed like 3 SCVs in the process, and obviously he was hoping for a little more. But normally, even if you decide to invest in like 4 to 6 Banelings in that phase in the game and they don't do a whole lot, you're not just supposed to straight up die against the next fight, because even though this game went on for a while, I think it's safe to say it was over after the first time. You know, Hart just demolished the army of Violet, and that fort base did fall, the one on the right side.
Yeah, that's it's really difficult because when you're engaging a player like Hart, his splits were, I mean, up until that last fight where it was okay to bleed out some Marines, his splits were phenomenal. Those Banelings were not getting good connections, and despite initiating the fight on creep. He always stayed just close enough to the edge that he could do most of his splitting off of it. And when we look at the second map, Frost, I'd say this map still about equally good for both races, even with cross spawns. So I don't think Hart needs to change it up. If anything, I'd see him maybe even go more macro focused on this game. Perhaps viOLet busts out some aggression. I'm not entirely sure, because if he drops this map, then he's one away from being eliminated from WCS America.
Yeah, best of 5 sound long on paper, but before you know it, you're trailing 0-2 in the series, and you're looking at 3 match points against you. Either way, game number 2 on Frost. If there's one map that viOLet is probably comfortable with as well, then it has to be Frost, even though we've seen Hart play on this map, and he's no joke. It's going to be fun. I think viOLet just needs to perhaps take a little more risk. It all just seemed a little too safe in that last series. And if you go up against someone as good as Hart, perhaps you're going to have to try to cut a corner here and there. You can't be safe in any phase in the game and expect, to eventually come out ahead. It just doesn't work like that against Hart.
No, he's not going to make any mistakes, that's for sure. That's what we've seen so far from him, as we are loaded in to map number 2 here in our first series of the round of 8 for WCS America. Our player in the top left, down 0-1. The blue Zerg, he needs your support to bring this series back. It is viOLet. And his opponent in the bottom left, the red Terran player who is making no mistakes so far in his WCS run. It is Axiom's Hart.
You think viOLet's going to switch things up and play gasless this game, or are we going to just see more of the same, but then perhaps, a little bit more in viOLet style, trying to make something happen with either a lot of units or just like play a little more greedy and make no units at all?
I'd actually like to see a bit greedier play from viOLet. This just isn't one of the maps where we've seen him in particular go for those roach-based builds. He had the success with the Speedling attack on this map against Pult, but the maps that viOLet has shown that he likes to get aggressive on are maps like King Sejong Station, especially with roaches. Overgrowth is another big one, and on occasion merry-go-round. But I think this map is not a bad map to play gasless on for a regular economic style.
And with these spawning locations, I also feel this is one of the better ones. If he wants to play a Roach Hydra style, I kind of feel that this is not too bad for him. It's going to be easier to run around. I mean, of course, if after 4 bases, he's going to have to expand pretty far away. That can be tricky, especially when you have to defend with Roaches and Hydras. But we will see. Either way, very important game for viOLet. Of course, the winner of this series will move on to the semifinals to play against the winner of the series between Balmer and Alicia, which is going to be the next series that we will broadcast. That's going to be a cracker, Nate, as the English would say.
Yeah, quite a cracker there, Roddy. This game so far, I have to agree with you though. These spawns definitely shake things up a little bit. When you're playing as a Zerg player against Terran and you have cross spawns, the Terran almost always has to go through the middle of the map, and that's where they have to fight a lot of creep to get your expansions. But when you spawn vertical like this, the potential, I would say, either 3rd or 4th base for Hart, the one that's closer to viOLet, gives a really good staging ground to attack what viOLet will probably take as either his 4th or 5th base. Some Zergs will try to take that base in the top right as their 4th when they get these spawns, but I think even that will open it up to drop harass, especially from Hart.
This is interesting. Hart switching things up. Last game it was just a single Reaper. Now we see a second Reaper on the production tab already, and it's even possible that he's going to open up with 3 Reapers. And against this Gaslow style from viOLet, that could be pretty effective. Of course, viOLet will eventually have enough queens to deal with these Reapers, but it's still very frustrating. It's going to force him to micro, and creep spread is going to be a little harder because he's going to need energy to perhaps transfuse as well. It's just a double Reaper opening, but still, I guess this Gasler style, it's definitely something that Hart can work with.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Kev. The thing is, you're in this situation where since there's no Zergling speed that's going to come at you, these Reapers can sit outside of the Zerg player's base all day. Just poke Zerglings like this, poke queens, poke drones, and he hasn't actually scouted that there's no gas, though, so he might end up running home anyway.
Yep, exactly. I was about to make that point. Even though we know that there hasn't been no extractors taken by viOLet, that's not something that Hart necessarily knows. Unless he's very good and he's able to put the pieces in the right place immediately by like, hey, you have X amount of links in this phase, maybe a little quicker than you would normally have it, but it's an almost impossible call to make that early on. And for now we see the Reapers head home. Speed normally can be ready between like 5:45 and 6:10. So perhaps Hart is not aware of viOLet's opening so far.
Yeah, this it's still not a bad build from Hart because he's opening with impunity, as it were. Anyway, He's got these 3 command centers coming in. He's using one of them to help wall, which means that an Overlord that moves into the natural could see that 3rd command center and allow him to know pretty much everything that Heart's up to. He has the Overlord outside of his main base as well to move in later on. But 2 gas being taken by viOLet. And, you know, I said that I don't think that this is a map that viOLet likes to do the Roach build on, but it's certainly one that other players like Hyun have no issue going for on this map. So maybe we do see he's got the right opener for it if he wanted to go for fast Roaches.
But he has not shown us anything yet, so we'll see. Hard making his way across the map, just checking bases for now, realizing that there is actually nothing to attack yet. He's like, oh, normally I'm at least able to shoot at a few things, but nothing in sight for him. On the other hand, yeah, everything very standard so far, Nate. Very straight up macro on Frost. What more could a nerd wish for?
Not much. And with the lair being started now with 2 evolution chambers and no Zergling speed, I can only imagine that we'll see a Roach Horn planted very soon. And viOLet has a very specific way that he likes to go through with this style. He likes to get just 4 or 5 Roaches out, then take the 3rd base. And after that, that's when we start to see him either pump out a lot more Roaches and really commit to the attack, or just drone up. And that's a scary thing as a player like Hart when you're poking with these Hellions Reapers. Once you see those Roaches, it's really hard to tell how exactly much they're going to commit to.
Queen's taking a lot of damage. 1 queen falls immediately. 2nd one goes down as well. Good focus fire there by Hart. The other queen actually doesn't have enough energy for a transfuse, Nate, so that well, it will live for now. But he can still hop in with these Reapers, actually. Man, viOLet can end up losing all 4 queens over here. Hart knows it as well. Picks up that queen, too. My god, this is a disaster for viOLet.
Yeah, you typically don't see the Reapers and Hellions do quite this much. This is going very nicely for Hart. And still with these slow lings, it's hard to catch up to this force. And every drone you kill now is going to really slow down any potential for a fast Roach attack, especially when you're trying to do it at a timing like when those 1-1 upgrades finish. So Roach speed begins, but Hart, he also knows what he's up against now. And he's got 3 barracks prepared.
Exactly, he knows what he's up against. He has slowed viOLet down quite a bit. viOLet losing all of his queens is even a disaster if he wants to take another base. You know, it's going to take a little longer before he's going to be able to get all the larvae that he could potentially work with. Right now he has he has 2 queens now again, but for a second there he had 1 queen to inject 2 bases. That is the last thing you want to have happen to you in this phase in the game. Hard definitely dictating the pace so far.
Yeah, he's controlled the momentum of this series quite well. And nice little tweet from Koromon. Shout out to Roddy who's casting because apparently Holland just won.
Apparently, I just realized that already, Nate. Why do you think I'm so happy?
No.
Well, big shout out, of course, to Karo Command. All about StarCraft from this point on, Nate. My mind is free.
All right. Well, is your mind free from the Roaches is what we're going to find out, Kev. 6 of them on the way. And viOLet's still doing that thing. He's still building some drones because that 3rd base is on the way. He's going to commit quite heavily to that. But we've also seen viOLet turn an opening like this straight into that Roach Hydra base play. So he's already mixing it up because he went for standard play in the first map. It didn't quite work. And now, you know, it almost gets that feeling. It's like, do I need to do this type of build in order to be able to win? This, you know, +2 Roach Hydra attack, which has worked out really well for him against Major, at least.
It was kind of in the line of expectation, though. We already said this before the series started, that viOLet is the type of Zerg that loves to switch it up. He's very unpredictable in many ways. Even the way that he plays the styles. Is it a big commitment to a 1-1 Roach push, or is he going to sort of make like a lot of links in a Link Bane style in a phase in the game which you don't expect it? It's just the type of stuff that he does. But I do think it's safe to say that so far this game is not going the way that he wants to. And I also feel that Hart is just such a smart Terran, and especially if you're, you know, playing as good as Hart has been lately, I really think as long as you have a read on what you're facing against, he is going to have the right answer the majority of the time. Now viOLet has made Roach Hydra work in phases in the game where I really thought he was going to get demolished. A couple of times, you know, the fight starts and we're like, oh, this doesn't really look all that good. Wait, what? 2-2 Roach Hydras are very good, and then suddenly we'll get really surprised as well. But I kind of like how this game is going for Hart. I really feel that he, when he has a great read on things, he's gonna make the correct calls, because he's playing better than he has done in a very long time. And I'm not expecting him to take some silly fights. I'm not expecting him to, you know, expose his siege tanks very much. It's gonna be very hard for viOLet to find an opening.
Yeah, and these Roaches try to do some harass, but I like this little play by Hart, just putting this supply depot on the high ground, even if, you know, obviously it's not going to block units from coming in, but it allows him to see those units coming, allows him to move his forces to prepare. And now the Hydralisks are coming out, those 2-2 upgrades that you mentioned. They're very good, I can tell you. I had the pleasure of getting wrecked by one of these attacks earlier yesterday, celebrating 4th of July, but This is one
You
of
see-
those pushes that if you aren't completely prepared, like Hearts 2-2 has only just begun. It's very easy to get overwhelmed by Roach Hydra in this stage.
Yeah, I don't even think that Hard has to be attacking right now. I think what he wants to see is also if viOLet is going up to 4 bases once more, because he knows that as long as his opponent is up to 3 bases, Roach Hydra, there's no need for Hard ever to be out on the map right now. Yes, he can push down creep a little bit. He could, oh, look at the medevac on top side of the map. Hydras will intercept it and snipe it. And if I was Hard, I'd be very, very careful, especially on creep. I don't really understand why he's here. Yes, 2-2 is not ready yet, but these tanks are going to get demolished by these roaches. I'm very worried. I think Hard should get the hell out of here.
Yeah, this is a tough spot to be in. Those are units left out of the medevacs desperately trying to find a way out. But I think viOLet realizes that there's a huge vulnerability. These drops can try to go back towards him, but he can rally his reinforcements to defend. He's building spine crawlers at home, and he knows, hey, you probably don't have a lot at home to defend this third base, do you?
Now this is going to be real fun, because what I think is going to happen is that Hard wants to evacuate his third base when the time is there and then defend in his natural, but viOLet is already aware of that, so viOLet is going to go for the natural instead. Hard is just going to abandon everything and sit on the high ground. There's no high ground vision over here for these roaches and hydras. That's terrible. A single overseer could have changed a lot. And at the same time, viOLet is going to lose so much on this side of the map. Well, this is madness.
This is one of those attacks that can be very tricky to deal with for both players. He could try to kill this third command center. I'd like to see him go for this with the Hydralisks. And he should be, okay, so he will be able to kill off that. There's another tank parking stuff on the high ground, but you're right, there's still no high ground vision, and now there's drops in the main base. He's still pushing this third.
This is going from bad to worse, I feel, for viOLet. Yes, he still has a lot of units to work with, but he has no high ground vision. These tanks will push out so much damage for the longest amount of time. viOLet is losing 2 bases as well. Look at these Marines and Marauders. They don't have 2-2 upgrades yet, though, so far the Roaches and Hydras are doing okay, but I feel eventually there's so much more endurance in the army of Hard than there is of this army of viOLet.
Now, I really like that he got concussive shells as well to keep some of these Hydralisks from retreating. The units are still alive in the third base. He managed to resecure the main, but all these forces constantly being stringed back and forth for viOLet. Talk about a real slugfest, as you said earlier, Radia.
91 supply against 91 supply. Just now, Hydra speed is about to finish up.
Slowing support tank.
48 drones remaining after these madness against 25 SCVs, but I mean, mentioning SCV numbers when Hard is in the game is completely irrelevant, of course, as we saw him make a comeback when he was down 40 workers. The only bad thing for Hard is that he never killed that hatchery. I really thought he was going to get a guaranteed kill on that third hatchery, but he didn't get it. I still like his army more though. 2-2 upgrades, Marine Bio against 2-2 upgrades of Roaches and Hydras, especially because, you know, Hydras are pretty expensive and of like a low economy, it's really hard to keep up with Marines. Yeah, I still like Hard's position, even though viOLet has slightly more workers. I think Hard is in a pretty sweet spot.
This is a big opportunity for Hart because he also lost that third orbital command. He doesn't have, you know, quite as much mule strength as he did in some other series that we would say he came back from with no workers. So
that is definitely true. But I mean, he's up in supply, he's going to siege up these tanks. There are a lot of Marauders in this mix as well, so these Roaches are going to have a hard time staying alive. And there's just not that much money to produce a whole lot of Hydras. Right now looking at 13 Marauders, 24 Marines against 12 Hydras and 16 Roaches. I don't think that viOLet can kill this army of Hard, Nate.
this is just too much Terran pushing forward. He's got so many medevacs to keep these units alive as well. The Roaches are dead. These Hydras shredded like paper. And the drones even coming out for viOLet. Not going to be quite enough to do it here. GG is called, and Hart takes a 2-0 lead in our first best of 5 of the day.
Wow, and that went quickly, Nate. Feels like we just started, but we're already looking at 3 match points, and Hart could make it to the top 4 of a WCS tournament for the first time in his career. It wouldn't be much of a shock, as he's been playing so incredibly well lately, but so far, Nate, I feel that he is reading the games very well. He's dictating the pace. I feel that he's not really getting surprised by anything.
Yeah, this has been one of those matches where Hart is just showing everything done right. I feel like I'm learning stuff just watching him play, holding off that attack over to his at his base at his third and his natural. That's a place where many Terrans die. I'd say I've died plenty of times trying to hold off an attack like that, but he did just enough damage back home, and he pulled all of his units away at the right time that it just showed just some really world-class skill.
Yeah, he really could have made a wrong call and tried to defend the natural instead and evacuate the turret, but he's like, no, he's actually going to go for my natural, so I'm going to sit on my main, and immediately realizing as well, or maybe it was more fortune than wisdom, but he did see there's no high ground vision, so he can put a tank in a really sweet position, and viOLet can stick around there. If he can see the tank, he's going to lose so many units. Either way, with a 2-0 score in this best of 5, it means that we could potentially be only one map away from the end of this series, so we want to show you 2 player pieces that we produced for this round of 8 WCS America Premier League.
2012, I'm doing really well, and I had a lot of good things coming in the 2013. So I was really expect a lot of happy thing for my future, and I can come to back Korea for getting visa. So I just lost everything, my tournament, my sponsors, my just everything I just lost. And then this weekend WCS it start again for me. So I'm really focusing, and I really wanna do better, and I try to do my best. And I was looking at the trophy, and I think I time to get new trophy though.
Hart has broken his opponent's forces. You said that there's just so many bio units on the map.
Has played phenomenal.
Hart is in such a good position. GG Hart!
우승을 한다면 실컷 카메라 앞에서 울고 싶네요. 해피 티어스. 제가 나이가 들었다고 말씀을 드렸는데 그런 것보다는 일단 오래 했고 아무래도 군대 한국인이니까 군대를 가야 하기 때문에 그런 생각을 가지고 있는 것 같고 아마 제 기량이 떨어지면 바로 은퇴하지 않을까 싶습니다.
Always awesome to see a little more of these guys as we're getting more and more familiar with them with each season. Even Hart, in the start of 2013, he felt like a little bit of a stranger to me. Like, yeah, we saw him in some MLGs here and there, but it kind of felt like we'd seen it all of Hart and there wasn't really that much more to it. And I really turned into a Hart fan, man, over the last few months. He's definitely one of my favorite 10 players to watch out there, and I think he's an amazing dude and definitely a blast to watch.
Yeah, it's been an absolute treat to see just the way that he plays. It's just so solid. This is the kind of play when I look at this, I'm like, is Tasia playing this game right now? Because he's just no mistakes. Everything's lined up perfectly. His defensive attacks are perfect. And I mean, I don't really know what else to say about these guys because they've just been, especially Hart, because he's been playing so well in viOLet. He's tried both of his styles that he's really strong with. What does he do in map number 3? He could potentially be eliminated right here.
I still think it could be very similar to what we saw in the last game, because I think in the last game he had a very good idea of what he wanted to do, but he was caught off guard when he started losing queens. Like, there is no excuse for losing 4 queens in that phase in the game against Reapers and Hellions. That is a scenario that all the Zergs are familiar with, as we are currently being loaded into Habitation Station. From my part, we can just go ahead and go for it. But yeah, I felt like normally you don't need to lose queens in that phase in the game, and viOLet is good enough to know that. He got a little bit unfortunate. I think he lost 1 queen when it had like 49 energy. The other queen was able to drop a transfuse, but then it just didn't really connect. It didn't really go well together. So that's going to have to go better, and I still think he's going to go with a Roach Hydra style on this one, because it's going to be extremely hard to play Muda Ling Bane against Hart on Habitation.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what he goes for, of course. He is our blue Zerg player in the top left position of the map, representing the CSN agency, and he needs to win 3 games in a row if he wants to get out of this match. It is viOLet. Been a rough series so far against this guy, who seems to be unbreakable so far in this match. Our red Terran player representing Team Axiom Esports, it is Hart.
For both of the players, like we said multiple times, it would be the first time that they would get this far in the tournament. But I mean, either of them deserves it completely. They've been playing a phenomenal WCS America Premier League season so far. But you just kind of feel it in everything that this could very well be a hard season. This could very well be the performance of a lifetime for him, because yes, he has had deep runs in the past. But I've said it so many times, and it's starting to sound like a broken record, but I've never been this impressed with him as how he's been playing lately. And I think he has what it takes to perhaps go all the way. Funnily enough, I was actually talking with Bomber a little bit, and Bomber is like, yeah, Alicia is going to be pretty tough. I'm a little bit worried, but after that it's going to be easy. I was like, what? I was like, you're going to get Heart of Violet. He's like, yeah, don't worry about it. I was like, have you seen Heart play lately, Bomber? Like, he's really good.
I don't know, man. Heart's a pretty good player. He's getting a lot of support in you guys' tweets. Thanks for tweeting out that hashtag WCS.
That's a good,
Heart's a good fantasy pick.
that is
sure.
a really good fantasy pick. Yeah, and he's a wiser man than us, man.
Yeah, this
Who
is
did
cool.
you have for WCS America Fantasy?
I had Bomber and Pig Baby actually. I'm still doing all right.
I had Bomber and Czech. They were in the same group, so. You know.
I'd be surprised.
I can blame
if
the
Pig Baby
system.
got much further. He's got a rough match ahead of him.
Anything is possible, though. Risk everything, Nate. All in or nothing.
I mean, it's the land of opportunity here. That's for sure. Anything can happen for these guys. And this game, nothing really crazy. The Worker Scout from Heart's kind of interesting. We don't see this a lot from Terrans, but the Reaper will come in.
I think
and the nice thing is he knows there's no gas.
I think it has everything to do with how Frost played out. He probably checked the game on Frost, and he also, of course, saw how it played out. And he's just like, so you played gasless. Well, I wasn't able to see it with my Reaper because I didn't want to lose it to the slow Zerglings that you made. So this Reaper Scout does confirm, at least for Heart, that he is playing against a gasless Violet once more. Something that with the Reaper, he couldn't be 100% sure about, unless he wants to sacrifice the Reaper in the main base, or at least take a big risk that it will die. So I think it's just like, you know what, I'm gonna make a minor investment, but at least I'll be 100% sure whether I'll be playing against an extractor build or not.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. If you send your Reaper into the main base and 2 Zerglings finish that natural expansion and they run out, and then suddenly you lose a Worker back home, you're like, oh, this is, you feel like you're off your game all of a sudden. So Heart just wants to know everything that his opponent's up to, because he's doing that same standard build. He's going right back into that 3rd command center. Of course, he only built 1 Reaper this game. I still like his position.
I love how Cam Dozer is keeping track of the Mew count so far. Apparently Heart dropped 18 Mews on Frost, and right now we're at 35. You know, if it's a 3-0 on Nate, that looks bad for your over under 300, at least if you're thinking over, because, you know, having 4 or 5 games will obviously guarantee us a whole lot more Mews.
See, this is the part where you're like, okay, Leash, you got to build Dark Templar. Don't let him drop those mules. Keep the statistics going.
Either way, I love the additional command center already in the main base from Heart. Of course, it's going to be very important for him that he's not going to play this one out too greedy. He saw there was no extractors. You can definitely expect a 1-1 roach timing from someone like Violet. Even though you can say that, you know, theoretically this is not the best map for those roach timings because of that ramp, because you need either an overload for high ground and there's not a whole lot of surface area for the roaches to stream up. It's still like the rush distance by ground is very small, and that does help if you knock on someone's front door with like 16 roaches when they have like 7 Marines to work with.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Roddy. On this map especially, we've seen Violet do this build, and he takes the gold base during all this, so even if he can't kill you, it's still difficult to move out against an army like, those heavy +1 roaches, and that makes things a bit awkward. I like that he put the Reaper on the gold base. He's saying, I don't want any drones to slip by here without you sending a few units first.
Yeah, that's very nice. It could be particularly nice if Violet just decides to sit back now and wait for his roaches, and then when he builds a bunch of roaches, ignores the gold, and by the time that the roaches are streaming across the map, only then he will realize that Reaper is there. That could be very frustrating to deal with. Either way, Violet is definitely rolling the dice here a tiny bit with this build. I don't mind him playing like this, because I even said it in the start of the game that I think this is a smarter choice than going Mutilating Bane against Heart on this map, but still, it's still Roach Hydra, Nate.
Yeah, it's one of those. Look at this. This is so cute, because oftentimes you see Violet just kind of send his drones like, okay, let's just take this 3rd base, but now it's like, wait, I gotta actually have some roaches or queens out on the map to push this guy away. I guess these slowlings could do the job. Just buy enough time to get space.
Oh, he's gonna get it!
It's
Oh
Heart.
my god.
His
Heart.
control, man.
And at the same time, we see Hellions running by in the natural. Most of them will squeeze through as well. The Queen is gonna be able to keep 2 out, but still 4 Hellions can do quite a bit of work. This is almost a mirror image of what we saw on Frost.
Yeah, he's already killed 7 drones, and with 4 Hellions still alive, he's going to see these roaches pop out, but 3 more drones killed the next volley. This is really rough for Violet. This is going to slow down any potential aggression significantly.
What? These Hellions have like no HP and still pick up 4 or 5 additional kills. 14 drones have fallen. Now the last thing in the world you want to make when you're about to push with roaches is reproducing 14 drones. You just don't want to do that. You don't want to waste your life and time on that. Heart is just doing excellent, doing everything excellent so far.
Yeah, and in this position, there's not much that you can do as viOLet other than try to get out drones. He has some roaches on the map that he made to defend, but 10 is not gonna, 10 roaches aren't going to kill Hart. That's, you know, it's just not going to happen. So he needs to recover economically and try to gear himself up better for that 2-2 attack that's likely to come as a follow-up. If he can delay Hart from taking his third base, maybe he can buy his way into a more even mid-game. But certainly in this phase of the game, I really like Hart's position more.
10 roaches wouldn't kill you either, Nate. I have faith
Not
in you.
even me, 10 roaches.
Yeah, for viOLet, there's really nothing else to it right now than other than trying to reestablish a good economy and then eventually, you know, get a bunch of Hydralisk out as well, fire up those 2-2 upgrades and just hope that Hart overextends. Because there was a small moment on Frost, you know, eventually it all turned out great for Hart because Hart decided to go for the base trade, and which was an excellent call. But it could have gone a lot worse in the middle of the map. So he was a little overeager on Frost, and this could potentially backfire.
It's a nasty way to go, right off the edge. Right off the edge of Habitation Station. So, you're right though. +2 attack has started up for viOLet, and he's actually going much more heavy into the roaches now. You still haven't actually seen him start a Hydralisk Den.
Maybe he's just going to try to roll the dice over. No, okay, there we go. A Hydralisk Den is being morphed in right now.
That's the ultimate in between. +2 just roach. That's going to have a really hard time since Hart's already building 2 Marauders at a time, which is a really nice adjustment that he made to his build.
You'll be able to max out a lot quicker though. We see Hart floating over his orbital towards the gold base. viOLet is on top of this as he sends one of his roaches over there. Now this could potentially be a moment, but viOLet, you don't have the same amount of units as you would normally have because you lost so many drones. So I do not recommend you taking a fight against so many Marauders and Stim Marines. This is really not a fight that viOLet wants to take.
No, but with the players even on upgrades, this should only go in Hart's favor, and he's chasing. He's picking off a few of these guys. That concussive shell means any tagged roaches will not be able to escape either.
Those good old 3 command center builds, Nate. In a certain moment, your production just kicks in, and you have so many Marines and Marauders to work with. viOLet cannot fight this. He only has roaches. Maybe if he gets the Queens in the mix as well. But he's on even upgrades, and he only has roaches. How are you going to fight an army that has like 7-8 Marauders in the mix?
You gotta hope that he keeps stimming his forces. That seems to be the only thing that's killing Hart's units. As the Queens come up, they get picked up, and GG is called a 3-0 victory for Hart, convincingly taking himself forward to the semifinals of WCS America.
Wow, a 3-0 victory will mean that Hart will make it to the round of 4 for the first time in his career, and it was in a decisive way. It was convincing what Hart showed us over here. viOLet, he's coming off a really good performance at MLG Anaheim. He's been playing some of the best StarCraft that he did in the last 18 months, ever since he was sort of like on top of the scene. But against this Hart, Nate, apparently that's not enough.
No, not enough. And you can see viOLet immediately wanted to go look at the replays. Like, how, like, what is it about Hart's play that's just made him so rock solid? And I can tell you, when I look at it as a Terran player, he doesn't, it's not anything really fancy. Yeah, there are plenty of Terrans that will try to run Hellions by, and getting kills like that is good, but the way he played in the first 2 games, he didn't need to get an advantage to take the lead later on in the game. And I have to say, this has just been one of those series where you can clearly see how much effort Hart has been putting in to get better at StarCraft.
Yeah, and not just getting better at StarCraft, I also think he had an excellent read of how to play against viOLet. I mean, obviously there's so much information out there. Just 2 weeks ago, Battlegrounds North America, viOLet played quite a few TVZs against Major. Then in his group stage here in WCS America, round of 16, he played a lot of TVZs. Even at MLG Anaheim, he played a lot of TVZs, as he also went up against Bolt in the winning bracket. So there was a crazy amount of information available for Hart, and I definitely think he put some work into going over a couple of those games, because everything he did made sense. A couple of small timings. Of course, we can always nitpick and say, you know, viOLet shouldn't have lost those Queens. The Queens should not be out of position, but Hart just capitalizing on every single opportunity he sees and wins 3-0. Did not expect that. I expected Hart to kind of take it, as he's been so hot lately, and his micro turns me on at night, Nate. That's how good it is, but I did not expect him to take it 3-0.
Well, I think you said all that needs to be said there, Roddy. I will agree, however, that I wasn't expecting that high of a level from Hart. He stepped it up, and all I am is impressed. It's been an absolutely fantastic series from him, and I think we're just about ready to hear what he has to say about that series on the main stage of Clutch.
Thank you, gentlemen. Hart, congratulations. You're moving on to the semifinals. Well done. Well done. In 3-0 fashion against viOLet. Out of those 3 games that you had, which game did you have to adapt the most compared to what your opening was and what viOLet was able to accomplish?
일단 깔끔하게 3-0으로 4강 올라가게 되신 거 축하드리고, 그리고 이제 김동환 선수 이제 빌드에 맞춰서 이번에는 이제 뭐 불곰이나 이런 거 많이 섞으셨는데 어떤 맵에서 가장 그런 그 원래 준비하셨던 거랑 다르게 이제 바꿔서 맞춰서 플레이를 하게 되셨는지.
네, 다 준비한 대로 한 것 같고요. 아무래도 두 번째 경기가 그냥 운이 좋게 김동환 선수가 어떻게 뚫려가지고 좀 쉽게 갔던 것 같아요. 3세트랑 1세트는 다 준비한 대로 잘 된 것 같습니다.
I didn't really have to change anything because everything was pre-prepped. It's just that in the second map that I got lucky that right. Sorry, I know my Korean names. Violet couldn't close the gaps properly, and that sneak by got me the advantage in the second set. First set, it was all pre-prepped.
And then going on in the round of 8, who'd you rather face, Alicia or Bomber? In the semifinal. In the semifinal tomorrow, depending on what happens in the next match, you could face either Alicia or Bomber. Who would you rather face?
네, 이제 4강 두 번째 시리즈 결과에 따라서 양주시 선수나 아니면 최희정 선수와 4강에서 붙게 되실 텐데 누구와 만나고 싶은지.
아무래도 지성이 형과는 굉장히 친하지만 양준식 알리시아 선수와는 팀메이트이기 때문에 엑시움 선수가 결승에 한 명 꼭 가야 되기 때문에 알리시아 선수가 올라왔으면 좋겠습니다.
I'm very close with Bomber, and I'm also a teammate with Alicia. With how Axiom's been doing, or Total Biscuit's been doing lately, we'd like to send one Axiom player to the final, so I'd like to face off against Alicia.
And finally, Hart, anything you'd like to say to everyone that has been rooting for you, supporting you, will continue to do so tomorrow in the semifinals?
이제 지금까지 계속 응원해 주셨던 팬들한테 내일에도 그리고 응원해 주실 팬들한테 한 말씀 해주시죠.
일단 요즘에 굉장히 트위터로 응원을 많이 받는데 굉장히 감사드리고 이번에 저희 CEO 집에서 머무르면서 연습을 굉장히 많이 했는데 굉장히 고맙게 생각하고 내일도 알리시아 선수와 함께 좋은 모습 보여드리겠습니다. 감사합니다.
Thank you for all the fans that's been cheering me through the Twitter, and over the past week and the weekend, I was able to practice at Total Biscuit's house. That's all possible because of all you fans. And tomorrow, I'll hope to bring you the good games with Alicia.
All right, let's give it up for Hart one more time, ladies and gentlemen. Congratulations. But also, let's hear it one more time for Violet. It's great to have him back. Violet, best of luck next season. Let's sort of QXC for some analysis.
Hey guys, welcome to the analysis section at WCS America, round of 8. We're going to be jumping right into the second game that we just saw in that series of Hart versus Violet. And this was definitely the deciding moment in that game. So if we take a look, Hart's poking in real quick here. He sees the queens and he just goes for it. If you click on the queens right now, you can kind of see how much energy they all have. So close to being able to transfuse. The queen on the left with just hitting that 50 energy. Violet doesn't quite realize that he had enough energy for that transfuse. And from here, everything starts to snowball out of control. Violet's entire game plan is built upon using these queens for defense. He doesn't want to defend this with slow Zerglings. It's going to be incredibly inefficient. He needs to keep those queens up for as long as possible, deny the scouting, keep these units out of his base. And from this point on, Hart has such a decisive advantage, and that's really what allows him to make such a good situation out of even when he made a little bit of a poor decision later. He pushes on a creep a little bit too hard. He almost gets caught by the Roaches and Hydras, but he gets out, and because of these little edges that he gained in the early game, he's able to make that mistake and still take it and turn it into the advantage that allows him to take that game. Very well played by Hart. Incredibly impressed. Looking forward to seeing him in the next round. I'm QXC. We're at WCS America, round of 8. We're going to go to a quick commercial break, and when we get back, we're going to have more StarCraft 2 action for you.